It's Halloween week, but what could be scarier than the condition of our country at this point in time? I'm Richard Bey. This is Richard Bey Talk, and thank you for joining me along with my producer, Albert Reinoso.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Beard's coming along quite nicely.
Getting the whole devil look down for Halloween.
If you like that sort of thing. All right. So, but let's move on. Nancy Pelosi's husband, an 82-year-old man, struck with a hammer, has skull fractures. I don't know what happened to his fingers, but they said his fingers were bashed with a hammer as well. He had to undergo surgery. What sort of attack could provoke more empathy in a decent person, in a human being with decency? Well, that's not what we saw. I go to these conservative websites and I go on conservative message boards because I want to see what the other side is thinking and what their arguments are so I can create counter arguments to them. And yesterday I was on one, they were talking all about this Pelosi attack, and most of them on the site, or many of them on the site, were referencing this loathsome television personality, Greg Kelly. He used to be on Fox in New York, and then he's on Newsmax now, and he's a radio host on WABC, our conservative radio station. This is a guy who last year tweeted, "When I was in the military, we had a white Secretary of Defense." So I felt better about that, because, of course, the current Secretary of Defense is a black man. What a loathsome guy. So yesterday, or was it yesterday or the day before? The day before, he tweeted this right after the attack. And everybody was referencing this. Just wondering if Nancy Pelosi tried to stage her own January 6th, leaving the doors and windows open for insurrectionists. And a lot of people were saying, well, that's Greg Kelly. He thinks this all doesn't add up. And people were saying, oh, they said he had brain surgery. Now it's not brain surgery. It's, well, when first reports come out, they're not complete in their information. So then after this, Elon Musk, the day after he bought Twitter, this is one of his first tweets. Take a look at this. It's a reference to a story that says Nancy Pelosi's husband was drunk, that he went to a gay bar and he picked up maybe a gay hooker, brought him home, and they argued over payment or over a sexual practice, that they were both found in their underwear. And that's why Pelosi was attacked. Now, I read the article. The guy that wrote the article said, oh, there's a rumor that's been going around that Paul Pelosi is gay. And I have an unnamed friend, it was an anonymous friend, who said he has this theory. And Fox News then reported that he was found in his underwear, later had to retract the story, but the damage was done. Empathy? Where does it exist? I mean, the guy that attacked Pelosi had posted on the internet that anybody who denied that the election was rigged should be dragged, let me get this quote straight, should be dragged out into the street and shot. Now, how much more closely can you connect this violent attack to the political discourse that exists in this country? Well, maybe even more closely. Take a look on CBS this morning. Margaret Brennan, who I think is the best out of the bunch, she certainly leaves Chuck Todd in the dust. And she holds Democrats' feet to the fire as well as Republicans. But she's tenacious, and she continues until she gets an answer. Not an obfuscation. Take a look at this clip.
I'm going to ask you about this when it comes to political violence. On your Twitter feed, you posted this video we're going to show just a few days ago where you're firing a gun and it says, enjoyed exercising my Second Amendment rights, hashtag fire Pelosi. Why is there a gun in a political ad at all?
It wasn't an ad.
Hashtag
I was
or a
tweeting
tweet.
out. I was tweeting out something that I
Hashtag
had just
fire
done.
Pelosi with a weapon.
Well, now
wouldn't a pink slip be more fitting if it's about firing her?
It's interesting, Margaret.
Why a gun?
It's interesting, Margaret, that we're talking about this morning when a couple of years back, when a Bernie Sanders supporter shot Steve Scalise.
Which was horrendous
when a Bernie
and
Sanders
horrific,
supporter
which is why
shot
we
Steve
should be
Scalise,
not
I never heard
putting
you
weapons.
or anyone else in the media trying to blame Democrats for what happened. We need to stay focused on what we're all doing.
We did extensive coverage of what happened to Steve Scalise. There's extensive
Nobody
news coverage,
tried to equate Democrats' rhetoric. People that
I'm not talking about your rhetoric. I'm talking about what you posted. You're shooting a gun. Our viewers just saw it.
Yeah, right.
Hashtag fire Pelosi.
Exercising our Second Amendment rights, having
That's not
fun,
a debate about the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
That's not a debate about the Second Amendment.
Yes,
Hashtag fire Pelosi.
Yes, it is. I'm
Do you
running
not
the campaign
understand that that is
operation for the
suggestive to people who are in a bad state and in this current environment, how risky it is? As you're talking about the importance of lowering the rhetoric.
I disagree with you,
Why do you leave that up?
Again, I never saw anyone after Steve Scalise was shot by a Bernie Sanders supporter
now,
trying to equate Democrat rhetoric with those actions.
Well, you'd have to find the Democratic rhetoric that was violent to inspire those actions. And yes, they did equate it. Newt Gingrich was on Fox News, and he said increasing hostility on the left was what provoked this. He said they send signals that it's okay to hate Trump. They think of Trump in violent terms. It's okay to consider assassinating Trump. And then something like this happens. Donald Trump Jr. was on Twitter blaming it on Shakespeare because they had a production in Central Park where the character of Julius Caesar looked and acted like Donald Trump. Well, the message that Shakespeare always sent, including in Julius Caesar, the Brutus and Cassius, the two assassins, they end up dead at the end of the play, and Rome ends up with a dictator. Macbeth is another one. Shakespeare doesn't countenance assassination, but I guess you have to sit through the whole play to understand that. All right. Now, you remember when Donald Trump held his rallies, and he would get heckled, and one guy got remember the guy that got clocked right in the head as he left the rally? Remember Trump saying, if you attack them, I'll pay for your legal defenses if you go after this person? Well, in contrast to that, President Obama was heckled at a rally. He's trying to rally Democrats for the midterm elections. And he handled it in a peaceful, civil fashion. Take a look at this.
Dressed in tactical gear, more people can get hurt. And we're going to be violating the basic spirit of this country. Yes. So, sir, wait, come on. But this is what I mean. This is what I mean. I mean, we're having a conversation. Come on. Sir. I'm not. Sir. Come on. Sir, this is what I'm saying. Look, there is a process that we set up in our democracy. Right now, I'm talking. You'll have a chance to talk sometime soon. You don't have to interrupt each other. You don't have to shout each other down. It's not a good way to do business. You wouldn't do that at a workplace. If you wouldn't just interrupt people in the middle of a conversation. It's not how we do things. And this is part of the point that I want to make. Just basic civility and courtesy works. And that's what we want to try to encourage. So, listen, that's okay. No. Wait. Quiet down. Look, listen, hey, hold up. Hold on a minute. This is...
Okay, don't you miss Obama? Well, he didn't say you know, if you beat this guy up, I'm going to pay for your legal expenses. This guy didn't get punched in the head on his way out. He was peacefully removed. And when Obama responded to him, he talked about civility and courtesy. How bad have things got? Well, you know, that people will only buy their pillows now through Mike Lindell because he's a Trump supporter and an election denier. But now it's moved on to razors. Look at this ad that I've seen. What is it? Jeremy's, stop giving your money to woke razor companies that hate you. Buy Jeremy's razors instead. All right. So now even when you, Albert, don't buy a razor if you're going to shave your beard. Don't buy a razor from one of those woke razor companies.
I wouldn't know which one is woke and which one is sleep. It's a razor, man.
That's right. But that's how bad all of this can become. Now, people can be gracious on a personal level, but repulsive or vile in their political comments. When I worked with Sean Hannity, he was always, hail fellow, well met, a slap on the back. Hey, buddy, how are you doing? At one point, he even offered to take me to meet Roger Ailes for a job at Fox News if I could just promise to be the likable liberal. You know what that means, the one that loses every argument. Chris Ruddy, who runs Newsmax, he used to be an old friend. One time I was on the plane out of Palm Beach International. Chris Ruddy's in first class. He walked back from first class to sit with me, bought me drinks, and we discussed politics, and he offered me a job writing for Newsmax. I said, oh, Chris, you don't want me there. But a nice guy on a personal level. Who else was there? Eric Bolling. You know Eric Bolling? He's now on Newsmax. He was on Fox News. Well, I met him at a resort in Arizona with my girlfriend, and my girlfriend and his girlfriend became really good friends. And so Eric and I became friendly, and he was I think he was a metals trader on the stock exchange. But I was over at his house. We used to double date all the time. Was a nice guy on a personal level. But when it comes to politics, repulsive. Now, I want you to listen to this because this is right after Pelosi's head was smashed open. C-SPAN asked callers to call in with their reactions. And man, it's whataboutism, it's conspiracy theories from the Republican side. Now, there were Democrats who called in as well. I haven't put those up, but they were certainly not of the same caliber as these phone calls that responded when asked about the attack on Paul Pelosi. Take a look at this clip.
I owe that problem to what the FBI did. The FBI did everything they could to control the election against Donald Trump, and they continued. All these years they have continued, and they are still after Donald Trump. What about Joe Biden? Why is he coming on the air putting all Republicans down, saying all Republicans are fascists? In my opinion, he is the one that is causing all of this now, causing it to get worse. And that's about all I've got to say.
The FBI has been involved. They got some probably crazy person off the street, one of the homeless people there in San Francisco, to go in and do this. Then they're going to blame it on QAnon. And it's like, really, the FBI has a lot to do with a lot of the stuff that goes on in the world. And you ain't going to tell me any different.
He'd been here illegally for over 20 years. He shows up with a hammer in his underpants.
Susan, where are you getting we're not seeing news that he was here illegally. I'm just curious where you're seeing that.
Well, it's all over the news. What news do you read?
But I think there's more of an important subject that we really need to bring up, and that's inflation. Yeah, it's awful that he got attacked, but seriously.
It only took 20 illegals to blow down those buildings on 9/11. How many millions come into our country right now? And Pelosi is in charge of this stuff, letting the illegals come in. We don't know who's coming in, but we know one. came very close to changing Pelosi.
It was 19. The 20th didn't make it for some reason. And I don't think they were illegal. Were they illegal? I don't know. I'd have to go look that up. Anyway, I don't want to leave you with despair or with a lack of faith in humanity or empathy. I mean, I was reading something John Meacham wrote yesterday. He said, in diplomacy, you need to have empathy. You got to put yourself in the other person's shoes. How can I put myself in the shoes of people who are hateful and delusional? I mean, I can say, well, yes, I understand there's inflation and some people are suffering, but this is all incited by a right-wing media complex that includes Tucker Carlson. You turn on Tucker Carlson, it's amazing the clownish kind of conspiracy and hatred he is pouring out over cable news. Same right-wing radio from the beginning to the end. It's the same thing. It's either said super fast in a high-pitched helium voice by Ben Shapiro, or it's said with vitriol by Don Borgiorno, whatever his name is. Or, I mean, I turn it on from time to time. And it's constant hatred and incitement. But there's another part of the world. I read this article about a woman who owns a pizza parlor on Staten Island. Staten Island, which overwhelmingly was the only borough to vote for Donald Trump. And she owns this pizza parlor, Verde Pizza and Pasta House. And she has taken some of the pizza and the pasta that they make and sent it to a shelter for the immigrants who are not very far away in a shelter on Staten Island. And people read this article and they started to send her money. And she has taken the money, actually the receipts, and pasted them on a wall right next to a picture of Jesus. Why? Because she says, let me get her quote exactly. It's not about Democrat or Republican. I'm a Catholic. You try to be good. You try to do good. You try to help women and children. Her name is Danielle Bongiovanni, and she has been given a citation by the city. And, you know, when this thing is over, I think I'm going to call up and give my credit card for $50 and say, send over a pizza to those poor folks. Here's another example. There's a woman named Tanya Roman. She has a shift as a cleaner at the Port Authority. And when she was leaving her shift, she saw a young volunteer with people getting off the bus. And I guess after walking thousands of miles, or at least hundreds of miles, some of these people have shoes that are in very bad shape, or perhaps no shoes at all. So she took off her own. She saw this volunteer actually take off his or her shoes and give them to the, to this poor immigrant. And she said, it's like a Jesus moment. Who gives the shoes off their feet to a stranger? And believe me, you don't want to walk barefoot through the Port Authority. So there's something in the Catholic religion called Caritas, which is charity. And there's something in human character called empathy, where you understand somebody else who is in need or is in suffering. And, we tend to think, when we think of Christianity, we think of the evangelicals and the abortionists or whatever. But there is an element of Christianity that motivates not a few, but many Christians to have empathy for those in need and those who suffer. Now, that was sorely lacking in the debate between Dr. Oz and John Fetterman, who had suffered a stroke. I mean, how much more would I, or maybe a lot of other people, feel about Dr. Oz if he had started the debate by saying, I realize my opponent had a stroke and this is very difficult for him. And I applaud his courage. Although he's facing great obstacles, he also feels a responsibility to the people of Pennsylvania. And I salute his devotion to that responsibility. My God, I would think a lot of Dr. Oz. But instead, Dr. Oz, before the debate, mocked his stroke. He said, hey, I'll give him an earpiece that will feed him the answers. He said, oh, I promise not to intentionally hurt his feelings. If he wants a bathroom break, let him raise his hand and say, bathroom, bathroom. And he also said, I will personally pay for medical expenses to be on site in case he has problems. I mean, how heartless. We all know it's almost a cliche that some doctors who are expert at their medical craft are devoid of empathy with their patients. Not all, but I know some. And I know how they talk about their patients, especially when they're under anesthesia and they can't know what is being said about them or how they are being mocked. All right. I had the great privilege of interviewing somebody who had recovered from a stroke. And she was a woman who was also very religious, was living in a Catholic nunnery with the nuns, wrote a book, and she had great empathy as well. I loved talking to her. She had also been one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Her name is Patricia Neal. And I have a small piece of that interview here. Take a look.
Today, I guess don't expect too much objectivity because to a certain degree I'm here today as a fan. And so are many of the people here in the audience. Our special guest this morning is one of America's great actresses. She has written a new book about her life and her career with amazing frankness. She is Patricia Neal. Please welcome her to People Are Talking.
Everyone else will think so. Oh, boy, it was.
Were there some moments when you sat there and said, I can't go through this again? I don't want to bring this up again?
Well, no, I don't have that kind of mind. If anything is in my mind, it has to come out, you know. I cannot swallow things. I cannot hide things. I cannot... I just am an open woman.
Even if they're painful things?
Yes, I am. And maybe that's good, maybe it's bad, but I just can't help being as I am.
Let's talk about...
As I am.
As I am, the name of the book. Let's talk about some of those painful things, which, incredibly, a lot of them are linked to the number 17, and as you say in your book. November 17th, 1983 was the day that your 30-year marriage to Roald Dahl finally dissolved. November 17th, 1962. Your 7-year-old daughter, Olivia, died from the measles. November 17th, 1967, your mother-in-law passed away. And it wasn't in November, but on February 17th, in 1968, you were stricken with a cerebral aneurysm that you had a stroke, which left you severely debilitated. The number 17.
It's very fascinating, isn't it? It's always there, you know. It comes up over and over and over again. My new grandchild, my son, my grandson, he was born on July the 17th. There's a lot of 17th.
Do you get nervous when you get around the 17th day of the month?
I'm not so clever as to do that.
But you yourself went through a debilitating stroke and know what it's like to fight back to life. What do you remember about the stroke in that night? It was February 17th. Do you remember it happening?
No, I don't remember it. I really do not remember that day at all. I remember the day before. But I don't remember that day. It's just that I've been told it over and over and over again what happened. And it's like I do remember it, but not really.
Not really.
No.
When you did come out of it, though, your husband helped you through your period of recovery. Something that people might find difficult to understand is through the course of the book and throughout your life to a certain degree, you've called your husband a lot of names. You called him a tyrant, a slave driver, a bastard.
Mm-hmm.
And here was a man who was with you during your darkest hours and, in our perception, helped you to come back to consciousness and life and the ability to perform.
Oh, well.
Isn't that a contradiction? For most of us out here, we'd say, here was a man who had a dedication to help you survive.
Oh, yes.
And you call him a slave driver and a bastard.
I don't mean that bad.
You mean that as a compliment?
No. What I mean is that now I'm going to get off the track, and I don't want. He can be a fabulous man. He can do great things. He really can. I mean, the fact he saved my life, the fact that, oh golly, we worked for Theo. We two worked together so hard for Theo. Olivia, when she died, I mean, it really took it. But I was a great wife to him, and he was a great husband. We got along fabulously well for a long, long time.
But
in the end, he did me a great deal of damage, really.
Are you talking about the fact that he left you for your best friend?
That's one thing. That's one thing. And he began to, he began to like being the head of it all. So he was not, I don't think he was perfectly fair with me a lot of the time.
Okay, you can say that he was not perfectly fair with you. And yet, throughout the course of the book, too, you talk about affairs that you had during the course of your life with married men.
Before I was married.
Before you were married, but they were married. You were the other woman.
They sure were.
You had an affair with Victor.
Would you like me to talk about that?
Yes, I do. I have to take a break right now, but Victor Jory, Peter Cookson, and of course Gary Cooper, who was the great love of your life, who was married at the time.
I know it.
I know you.
Well, I got my reasons.
All right, we're going to talk. I think a lot of women could understand your reasons too.
All right. Now, she did continue to talk about Gary Cooper, who I think was 25 years older than she was, and they met on the movie The Fountainhead. But if you want to see more of that, you're going to have to subscribe to the Richard Bey Talk podcast, because it's not going to be seen today, perhaps later on. Now, you may have noticed that I was touching my nose a few times, and now I'm getting close to sneezing. I have terrible allergies. And before I sat down, I used Afrin in each nostril, which cleared it up, but it causes, some dribble out. So that's the explanation for that. Thank you for joining me here today. And remember, share this on Facebook, tell your friends about it, say nice things about us, and subscribe. It's so easy to subscribe. We're also available in audio only on so many different podcast platforms, Apple and Google Podcast, and go looking for us and you'll find us. So thank you again for watching this, and remember, don't dwell on all the negative things. I heard something this week that stuck with me. Hope is the last thing that dies. And remember, Caritas and empathy. And all my best. Take care.